Somerset Hills. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media, consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills at which formal action may be taken. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Baker?
Here.
Mr. DiGiacchino?
Here.
Mrs. Hobby?
Here.
Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Mrs. Santoro?
Here.
Ms. Sui? Here. Mrs. Tober?
Here.
Ms. Virtue? Here. Ms. Birch?
Here.
Mrs. Lees?
Here. Board correspondence.
We got one letter at 4:30 today.
Right, we had one letter to the members of the Board of Education from the Bedwell teachers who are inviting us to the annual Invention Convention. And the public is also invited. The museum is open to the community on Wednesday, May 23rd from 6 to 7. And the board can visit on May 24th from 9 to 2:30. So we're looking forward to that.
Report of the superintendent. Thank you. So tonight, we do have a presentation, and in terms of recognition, we don't have students with us tonight, but I would like to recognize Jennifer Schaffler because she completed her doctorate.
Do a few edits.
All right. That's like saying, I like your dress, and you say, well, I bought it on sale. Okay, so we're proud of you, congratulate you. So she'll be going to her festivities at the University of Pennsylvania over the weekend, and vacation time.
Congratulations. Well, not yet.
After the edits. So, we're proud of you anyway. We're confident you can do those edits. And also, Scott Nigel is actually, he flew out today to Southern Cal because he's attending his festivities this weekend for his dissertation. He defended his dissertation also, and so he actually will be robed, so. This weekend. So we have exciting times.
Oh, nice.
So congratulations on all your hard work. Because it does make a difference. Having a doctorate does make a difference because it is that extra commitment of, having to jump through all those hoops that, people don't want to jump through. But I think it's important because it does definitely demonstrate a commitment to education. So we're proud of you and thank you for that dedication. Okay, so having said that, we have.
I'd like to just thank the board too for all the support. The board really, did a lot to help me get through this, and I appreciate that. And my commitment was to this district and to give back what I can for this degree too.
Excellent, thank you, Jen. Good job, well done. And now we have Michael Catelli is going to do a presentation on our newcomers and ELL and bilingual students.
I get a PowerPoint set up.
Okay, so it's got a PowerPoint.
Okay, fair enough. That's fair enough. It's all part of it.
Can't find the clicker, so not me.
Be careful, Mike.
It's part of the presentation. There we go.
We have to find it. We don't know where that is.
don't know what
Put the screen down?
June.
Yeah.
For next year. So when my Izzy leaves, Audrey will start. So you'll have a stand tomorrow.
We want some of the lights on front. Can everyone see it?
You put that other one on.
Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for having me today. As the ELL supervisor, I'm very happy to talk about the different systems that we have to support bilingual families and English language learners throughout our entire school district. So what I'm going to talk about throughout the presentation today is we're going to look at the different means that we currently have set up to support our bilingual families throughout our community. I'm going to talk about the translator services that we have at our meetings and at our events, how we do translations of school information such as documents, the different community events that we hold, collaborations we've developed with community organizations, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about our ELL program. One particular thing that I do want to stress before I get in, specifically when I mention the ELL program, is obviously the ELL program is one of the main ways that we do reach our English language learners, but those are not the only ones in the community that we're reaching out to through all these services. There are a lot of families that have students that are not in the English language program because they're fluent in English, but at home they may need communication and different forms of access through some of the supports we offer. And with that, I want to highlight too that within the district, we have students that have mentioned that they go to a home where there's a different language spoken, and there's 22 different languages that have been marked that way. So when I'm talking about all of these services, though Spanish is the largest second language spoken in the district, there's 21 other languages that are spoken that we do provide some services in and that we have worked with. So one of the main things is what our goals are with the program. The main thing is we want to ensure that all families have opportunities to communicate with the school district. That's the main goal of everything that we offer and everything that we guarantee throughout the program. If families can't communicate with the school, they miss out on all the great opportunities throughout the district that we offer. We have a great amount of program support throughout all the different schools in the district, and we want to make sure that if the families may not be able to access some of those resources because they lack English, we still have ways for them to be able to engage with us throughout the school. So two things that I do want to stress before I get into some of the specific points of how we do translation meetings and events. One of the things we do is we ensure that if families come to a meeting where we have set or we have an appointment, we make sure that we have translation necessary. If it's Spanish, it's usually a staff member, but if it's some of those other 20 languages or so that I've been talking about, we make sure that there are opportunities to provide that for all families. And we've done that in a variety of different languages. And one thing I do want to stress too is if families want to call, if they have questions, if they want to leave a message but can't leave that message in English, they can directly call my extension that we have there. You can call 908-204-1930, extension 2138. They can leave an answer with me, it'll be recorded, and we will get it translated, and we'll be able to get an answer. It's one of the services that we want to provide. So as I start going through some of the finer points, like how we do translation at meeting, events, and that sort of stuff, I'll encourage if anyone has any questions, wants me to clarify anything, please feel free to kind of raise your hand and interrupt. I'm more than happy to answer, but I'll also take questions at the end. So during meetings, which I just mentioned, families are provided translation, which is done by a staff school member if it's a meeting that we've scheduled. So this includes IEP meetings, discipline meetings, guidance meetings, and like I said, we've done this in multiple different languages throughout the school district. But if we're booking the meeting, we're guaranteeing that we have translation available if it's needed by the family. If a family member shows up without an appointment and needs translation, all the schools do the best they can to get a teacher or a translator who might be available at that point. Sometimes that's not a possibility at that moment, so we do schedule later appointments so we can make sure that at a meeting the family member who's coming is able to have a meeting where we can have translation for them. There are generally times where we can book and set where translation is able to be provided. So we try to make appointments for different people during those times. Translation of documents. All state mandated, specifically ELL testing information letters and ELL program are always provided in the family's first language. That is 100% a legal requirement. We guarantee that in every language, whichever one families are marking as their native language, we're able to provide that for them. We have been trying to grow our archive of other documents specifically in Spanish that we can provide to families. Title I information is available and has been available for a while. We've recently translated all the HIB reporting documents with the help and support of our HSA liaisons, which I'll talk about more in a little bit. Athletic registration forms and other district documents have been translated into Spanish. The biggest idea is we want to get a lot of the documents that I don't want to call static, but are similar and may only change a little bit year to year, so we can have a rich archive, so we can grow with that. And one of the final points there too is we're always looking for ways to expand that. It's one of the things we're thinking about over the summer of which documents we can target to translate, because there's a little more free time in the summer to translate documents. So we want to grow that archive, be able to have more documents available and translated into Spanish. For how the documents get translated and that little bit of that idea of that translation process, when a new document is created that hasn't been translated, it's passed along by school level staff to be translated. Every school has staff that can translate, and we have people appointed for the district to do the translation that are employees within the district. They translate the documents, and then we make sure that they are available for the necessary appointments, meetings, reasons, or to share out with the public. And one of the things that we really want to do next year is grow the connection with the HSA community liaisons to make sure we can share out important information about school dates and events, things that may come up like during a week about an upcoming meeting, something like that. Make sure we can kind of leverage technology appropriately too and get as much information out as quickly as possible. It's one of the things we're really targeting to look at during the summer to see how we can grow in that area. For community outreach events, this is one of the areas where I think we've really grown a lot this year, and we've kind of targeted and tried to offer as many events as possible to make sure that we can have families coming to the school where they get to meet administrators, they get to meet staff members, and we get to discuss with them about their needs and how we can kind of help work with them. At Bedwell, before the back to school night, there's always meetings offered in Spanish to help answer families' questions about either registration forms, and other kind of, a lot of times it's like lunch questions that they'll often have too about how they fill out some of the forms for lunch, where we can help them before back to school night begins. Every year, this year we did it in October, we have a bilingual community night, a program for families that may speak other languages to be able to teach them and kind of give information out about the functions of the school. Several board members attended our meeting this year too. And we actually broke up into different groups and we talked about different ways that the families felt we could offer events that they would want to be part of, that we can get them more to the school and how we can help them. And I'm really proud that from those conversations and from those meetings with families, we were able to get 2 ideas that we implemented this year. We worked with Barnes & Noble to offer a Nook program where Barnes & Noble helped provide resources that we could give to our K-1 students, where we were able to get more reading material into the hands of those families. So K-1 ELL students were provided by Nooks through our collaboration with Barnes & Noble, so we could have more reading material at the home for those families to kind of encourage reading at those early grade levels. And then this year we're looking to do an end-of-year family celebration. It's something that the ELL department at the high school has always done. And we're looking to grow it and include families in that celebration this year. We've also been working with the HSA community liaisons. They have done an incredible job of offering monthly meetings for families where families are allowed to ask any questions, bring any documents, and we can talk through everything. They have been one of the most helpful ways that we've been able to expand everything this year. We want to continue talking about different topics, themes, and how we can do more next year with those meetings. We've also had the BHS Spanish Club, which I'm very happy with. They've had members that have been able to come to help provide childcare overseen by one of our staff members at these events. This has been really helpful because one of the feedback we received from family was sometimes it's tough for them to get to meetings because they can't have childcare, can't find childcare. So again, getting back to that main goal we have, that we want to make sure that all the information and resources we have in the district is accessible to all families. This is just a way to make sure we can guarantee more families can attend the different events that we do. We've also grown a lot of partnerships this year. You can see just a list of some of the major ones that I wanted to highlight at this point. Sweet Reads is a not-for-profit that donated books to our middle school and elementary school ELL students to make sure they have more reading material at home, and we're looking about how to grow that over the summer. Raritan Valley Community College has come to the high school to talk with a lot of our students who are coming from families where English may not be spoken in the home about the programs that they offer. Barnes & Noble has worked with us on the program I discussed. Our counseling department has worked really well to get Zufall, which is a health center, to come in and do some bilingual counseling support. We developed a partnership with the Partnership for Drug-Free New Jersey. Unfortunately, like many things in March, it was canceled due to snow, but we're still working with them to make sure we can get resources to parents and figure out how to have an appointment for them early next year to talk about the work that they do, with how to discuss drugs and everything like that with your kids, drug prevention. Middle Earth, I put at the end because I want to stress it has nothing to do with Lord of the Rings. Every time I'm in a meeting and I mention Middle Earth, I'm always like, it has nothing to do with elves. Middle Earth is a Somerset County-based organization that works to support like Title I, Title III students. And they have a program, the Youth College Readiness Program, which is a program over 2 years for free where they come into a school district and work on helping get access to college for kids that may not necessarily have thought college was for them or thought that was a pathway through the connections that they have throughout the county. So we're excited to work with them and hopefully get that started for us next year. So like I said in the beginning, one of the ways we do provide services to a lot of our second language families, bilingual families, is through our ELL program. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. I could talk about the ELL program for forever and ever, but I'm condensing it down to kind of where we're interacting with the families and kind of bringing in how you join the program and how you exit the program. So when every family registers, they complete that whole stack of forms when they register. And one of the things they complete in there is the home language survey, which asks 3 questions about the language spoken at home. If any of those questions are answered, that a language by either the parents or by the student, or it wasn't the first language learned by the student, if it's marked as not English, the student's assessed to see kind of their skill level in reading, writing, speaking, and listening in English. And then using that assessment, those assessment results, using previous school records if they're available, we then decide if a student needs to be placed in the ELL program and at what level they're placed in. And all this is communicated through the parents. So when a student is in the program, a student every year takes state-mandated testing, which assesses those skills I just talked about. Every year they assess their skills in reading, writing, speaking, and listening English. This is in addition to the PARC testing and all the other testing. It's a special test, state-mandated test for ELL students because we use that data to assess where their level is in the ELL program, how well they've been growing, should they be exited from the program because they've reached a fluency level that we're comfortable with. So as it says below, students stay in there until we use multiple indicators, and generally at Bedwell and Bernardsville Middle School, a student is in the program for about 3 years before they're exited. So the multiple measures that we use, that state-mandated test that I was talking about is called Access 2.0. We use the results from that and the growth that we've been seeing in those scores from students. We use ELL teacher input, classroom teacher input, and a lot of other information from various sources to determine if the student should be placed, continue to be placed in ELL, or if they need to exit. And then after that happens, the family is updated if it's recommended that they should go into exit. It's communicated to the family in their first language, and then we do actually monitor the student's progress for at minimum 2 years in case supports might still be needed for that student even after they have exited. And all of this is the legally mandated required work that we're doing for our ELL program, all the guidelines set up through the DOE. So in addition to the opportunities I talked about, I want to just mention some of the things we're thinking about for next year, for the future, and then I'm more than happy to take any questions we have about everything. So, like I said, at multiple points in the year, we collect feedback from the families, from community members and students, and we're trying to think of different ways that we can help grow and offer more opportunities to families. So one of the things we really want to do is leverage technology for translations during large presentations. We've seen a lot of abilities where parents are able to, where families are able to have headsets, and someone is doing a live translation. We want to look into how possible that would be able to get as much translation as possible in as many meetings as possible. We're looking at our ELL placement procedures because the DOE is always putting out new guidelines, new suggestions, so we're always checking to make sure that we're following the best recommendations for our placement. We're looking at summer programs for our students, particularly our Bedwell students, to make sure there's as much support and education during the summer as we can possibly provide. We really want to enhance the document translation process. It's one of our big goals to look at in the summer is how we can really streamline and provide the most access to document translation. And one of the big ones that we really want to tackle and get into that archive that I talked about is the school handbooks. We really want to see how we can get as much of that translated and have that available for everybody during the summer. And with that, these are some of our big goals, but with that, I'm more than happy to take questions. I think it's a summary of the different services and everything we provide. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Does anybody have any questions?
So Michael, you in essence would be the emergency, you would be the Spanish translating extension.
So to the two, the emergency, like we always suggest, if there's an emergency, family is, having an emergency, if you need to contact the school, please directly contact the school for emergencies. For my phone number, what we're suggesting with that is if you have a question about a different procedure, how something works, and you need to understand, like, how do I reach my student's teacher about this? Contact me, I'll get it translated by one of our translators, and we'll be able to reach back out to the family.
But what if they're calling their child in sick, or there's an actual emergency, like, that needs immediate attention where there's no time to ask senior David to get, come out of class to translate, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think there needs to be something that addresses a very specific immediate need.
Mm-hmm. For any emergencies, everything like that, we always say, directly contact the school, and emergencies, we can find translators to make sure.
And there's
that
someone
it's
in
an
the
emergency.
administrative area that speaks Spanish that can do that?
I will say I'm working on my Spanish, but definitely not.
You have a full-time job.
But definitely not fluent, and I don't
Right,
want to throw myself
right.
under with that one. But again, if it's an emergency, directly contact the school. If you need contact, again, we will figure that out if you're reaching out. But for the other questions, we can get them processed. There will be some processing time due to the resources. There's the resources that we have available. There'll be some time to process it and get an answer, but we will get it.
I guess my concern is if someone walks into the building and they don't speak English and they're trying to register their child for kindergarten,
Mm-hmm.
the receptionist doesn't speak Spanish, the principal doesn't speak Spanish, what do they do? How do they feel? Because they want to feel inclusive, they want to feel like they're welcome, and if someone is not there to greet them and to help them through the process immediately,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
So I guess if we can work together to figure out that, and I think, having just, para español, hit number 2 and have a voicemail in Spanish, that greets them in their language is more welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
So I just ask you to consider that.
Yeah. Like I said, over the summer, we're thinking about different options to look at the whole translation process. So again, we will definitely consider everything. And like I said, one of our biggest goals is, if we have an appointment made, if we have, a meeting set up, we do make sure that for registration, for anything, we can get a translator. It is difficult sometimes due to the resources we have to make sure that at every moment we can get a translator if someone's walking in, but our biggest result is we make sure to try to have, an appointment set, and we will get a translator.
Okay, and could you add to your list of things to translate over the summer, the new drug policy?
Yes.
And as well as that, there's special Friday folders and announcements that come out day up, and those come out via email. But a lot of these families don't have access to technology. They don't have email. They give an email in English, but they just put it on the paper because they have to put down an email, but they don't actually use it or have one that works. So they're excluded from the conversation, or they don't get the information they need that day if it's immediate. So how would you address that?
That's one of the ones, to be fair, that when we talk about kind of, enhancing that translation process, really working on it, one of the things we want to look at is that, when there's Friday folder announcements that sometimes come in a day or two beforehand, that is, beyond the realm of the resources available to translate every Friday folder from every school, but we can take I think we can take key information, key updates, and find ways to be able to get them out to families. And I think that's through working with liaisons, kind of working as a whole team to figure out what is the best way to get everything out.
And I know that at Bedwell there's an emergency call system, and there are translators that call in case there's a snow day, emergency, school's closing early, come pick up your child. But at the middle school, we don't have that. So, what do you do in those instances, I guess? How do you communicate an immediate need in Spanish to those families that are not going to get, they're going to get a voicemail, but it's not going to be in Spanish, so they may not understand what's going on.
We'll consider, and like I said, we'll look into the kind of areas that we can grow and kind of work on that translation process.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Maybe you said there are 21 languages that we have to address.
So the 21 languages, some of them are just a few kids who speak it, and some of those families mark that they speak, X language, and then also are fluent in English. So when I see some of the languages, I know where you're working with that family in English, but they mark that student has experiencing that language at home. So that's why they might be in the ELL program, but we can work with those families in English. But I still think it's interesting to think that there are 21 different languages that are being used in homes for the kids that are coming to our school.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So many languages.
Yeah.
One question. I know the budget was done for the next year. Did the district at all consider looking into a bilingual representative that would be district-wide, so would have access to all the schools for meetings, for translations, rather than just being someone who's on staff but as a teacher, someone specifically for this position?
We considered a lot of options for that, no. But we are hoping that a lot of the expansions and changes we made can start working towards making sure there's more access to as much translation as possible. But within the school, or within every school, there are multiple people who can help provide those translations.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Michael.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Good job.
I'm almost finished. I don't see Jack here, so I'm going to give the Student Safety Data System, formerly known as the Electronic Violence and Vandalism Report. And this report is from September 1 to December 31st, 2017. At the high school, there were 4 cases of substance abuse, 3 threats, 1 theft, and 2 HIVs. Middle school, there was 1 incident of assault and 3 HIV incidents, and there were no incidents at Bedwell. That's my report.
We have several organizational action items to vote on tonight. And Monica, yours is kind of complicated because there are a lot of elementary and middle school things in here. I don't know if you've gone through, but.
Yes, there's to do public comment.
Oh, sorry. You're right. Back to my blurb here. Public questions and comments. We very much welcome input from the public. Public comments are welcome at this time on any agenda item. Towards the end of the meeting, there is a second public forum on any topic. Please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, but an individual may speak a second time after all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. Please understand that our public forums are not structured as question and answer sessions, but are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. In instances where the board feels there is a misunderstanding or inaccuracy, the board president or superintendent may adjust the comment. In accordance with New Jersey statute, the board will not discuss matters regarding specific personnel. Public questions and comments will be limited to 30 minutes. Thank you for your input. Do I have any public comments or questions on agenda items? Seeing none? Okay, back to our organizational action items. So we have many, and there are some that you can vote on, and maybe one.
I know
Okay.
one.
All right,
I got
great.
it back.
Okey-doke. So I would like to move items 1 through 54 on the organizational action items.
Second?
Yes. Any questions on these? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiacchino?
Yes.
Mrs. Hockey?
Yes, except for Michael.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sanford?
Yes.
Ms. Sui?
Yes.
Mrs. Tover?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Well, that was the question, right? Because there were a bunch of them, but they didn't have stars by some of them that I should be voting on, I noticed. So I got, for example, I know I would say yes to 6. Is that, was it 6? No, that's a question I had. Hold on. Yes to 2, and then when I went through it, I saw there was some that did not have stars by them that I should be voting on. For example, a district mentoring plan, is that not something I should be?
K-12.
That's K-12, right? So it should be yes to 24. So I wasn't, so when I looked through here, there were several that did not have the stars. So should I just say yes to the ones that should have stars? And
Yeah,
like,
if
leave it
there are
like that, or
others.
do you know which one should, Heather? Well, we just,
Why don't you just say which ones you're not, and yes, except.
it's more that I am,
More
than-
than-
it's less than I am. I mean, I
Less
said.
than you are.
Yeah, I saw it was 2, and I thought it was the plan for number 6, I thought too. Because I had a
You
question
say
about
yes,
that.
you are, or?
Yes to
Wait,
that,
Why
yes.
can't you vote on the meeting dates?
I can.
Okay.
I could vote on, I thought 6 too. I thought also 24, which I say yes to. And I probably missed some more of them. So there were a lot that's just,
No, I was just saying if there are a limited number that you can vote on, just say yes, except, and then those numbers that you can't vote.
yes to the ones I can vote on.
No, she's
No,
saying.
yes
say-
to the ones you can, and then just say,
List the ones you can't.
Okay.
list the numbers you can't vote on as not voting.
Or I could say yes to the ones I can, which is less.
Oh, I thought you
That-
said.
Okay.
Yeah, because
But
then I go to
it looks like
them.
more in here, but
Yeah.
okay.
But see, they're not all marked, so I don't know, I have to go through and see which
I
ones.
kind of went through, but
Okay, because I know 38, and I said yes to that, and I was,
let's, I mean, the first one I came across that I didn't see you could vote on was number 5, which was the HSA things at Bedwell and BMS.
yeah, but only one I would have to, it would be the VHS.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. So
but they're not
that's-
separate. So this
Right.
goes back to, and I know Heather's new, so I'm not gonna, I'll just make a comment. I had asked to separate the stuff that I would vote for out, so it would be easier that way, but sometimes it's difficult for you to do it too. So I understand.
All right, so I'm going to help you because I went through as well. So
Okay.
that part of number 5, right?
So that's a yes, and then number 6 was a yes,
And then,
and number 7 I said yes to, because officers I should, for those positions. Yep, it's K-12. And payment of bills, I thought that would be yes, that's 9.
I think just number 11, there's 2 on that you
Yep.
copied. Okay, so just the high school and,
And also 10 too. Then I went over to the bids, I wasn't sure about that, and the contracts, because I know we have to. So if so, yes to 20 and 21, yes to 24. And then I skipped over
To the home instruction, I wasn't sure which one's high school related, so I said yes to 27. Special ed schools, I wasn't, that don't have anything to do with me. So then I go over to EHS, which was over, which I thought was nice because you did separate that out, was 38, yes, and 39 was a yes. And then 40 was yes. 41, I'm assuming that I wasn't sure if it's a yes by that one. 42 is a yes. 43 is a yes. 44 is a yes. 45, I had a question on that one. That was, that's transportation. And the only thing is that Bedminster provides our, transportation for our students, our high school students. The only thing is I wasn't sure if these are the transportation used for high school events. So that's why I'm star by. When they go to athletics, is these buses they use?
These transportation employees are not for that.
So that means that because we provide our own, so that means that be a no, there shouldn't be anything there. So yes, to 46, 40. Now it's 47, so 47 is, because I know Doc has driven the kids somewhere. Okay, so 47 is a yes. 48 is a yes. 49. And I think that's it, right? 50, but there's no 50, was it?
Yeah, on the addendum.
Administrators except for
Administrators except for Bedwell and yes, and BMS. So that's 1, 2, 3 that I'm not voting on.
Thank you, sorry, that was,
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I'll do better next year.
That's okay.
this only comes once a year, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was a lot in that one thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I do apologize.
All right, so then,
Okay. Mrs. Lees?
yes.
That's it for organization.
Okay, that's it, organization. Okay, we want to move to approval of the minutes from last month. May I have a
Make a
motion?
to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Greg. Second? Any questions? Okay, seeing none?
Okay, Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. DiGiacomo?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoppy?
Abstain.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Ms. Sui?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes. Bob, we're going to just do finance now.
The Finance Committee did not meet in these last 2 weeks since the last board meeting. But I'd like to draw your attention to a couple items on the agenda. One is that the item number 4, our food service contract is up after 5 years, so we're going out for an RFP for getting bids on the food contract. So that's number 5. And I also want to point out on the contract services for getting services on data. That's to fill a staff vacancy between now and the summer. That's number 10 on the addendum. And this number 12 is a school safety grant. We get that pretty much every year from our insurance company. The number changes a little bit, but because they give us a grant to spend money to improve things around the school, so the $8,000 we can use for security cameras, because we're always changing those and expanding the security cameras. I think those are the only thing that are out of the ordinary, so I like to move items 1 through 13 on the finance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions on any specific item?
Great. Any questions? Monica, I see that 13 is the federal item.
Yeah.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiacchino?
Yes.
Mrs. Hockey?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Ms. Suey?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes, but abstain from 13.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes, for 1, 2, 3, I think 4. And 8, just questionable. I wasn't sure about that. Yeah,
Oh, that's
that's just a thing that you have to do because you have money in the
Right, yeah.
district.
They scored the money here.
Yeah. And then on the other, over here, it was number 10, and 11, and 12.
Mrs. Leeson?
Yes. Okay. That's fine. Policy did not meet, right?
Curriculum?
Oh, curriculum.
All right, the curriculum committee met yesterday, May 8th, and began by reviewing the 2-year ahead math program at BMS. I'd like to first refer to last year's 5/9/17 curriculum meeting, where Grant Comer presented an overview of the middle school and high school math course sequence. At that time, our district offered only one pathway where students would be able to double up in 9th grade and take geometry and algebra 2. During last year's discussion, the committee examined opportunities for uniquely talented math students to accelerate further and take AP, BC Calculus in 11th grade. We then made the recommendation, which was approved, to open another pathway for students to jump ahead to algebra in 7th grade and then take geometry in 8th grade. These students would have to show proficiency on grade 7 math content through an end-of-the-year course test. Students must also have a qualifying test average from their 6th grade math class. The committee thought it was prudent to evaluate this program, which we did at yesterday's meeting. Our recommendation is to change the criteria from achieving a 98% or higher test average in periods 1-3 of grade 5 math to 95%. And we recommended changing the criteria from 98% or higher test average to 97% test average in marking periods 1-3 of grade 6 math honors on the end of course test. This gives students the opportunity, it gives more students the opportunity to qualify for the program. We then moved to discuss CUSAC and summer curriculum projects. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of education about CUSAC. It won't take long, but I wanted to educate myself too. CUSAC is a system that focuses on monitoring and evaluating school districts in 5 key components. The components are instruction and program, fiscal, governance, operation, and personnel. As a school district, we must comply. Okay, so then this year, the CUSAC process has been changed to be more elaborate and detailed in terms of curriculum. Therefore, we must meet the standards CUSAC has given us for curriculum projects and update all documents. The district will hire teachers to work on curriculum projects, and supervisors will update documents during the summer. Curriculum projects will be in alignment with New Jersey student learning standards and are to be centered around differentiation, career readiness priorities, 21st century skills, health, arts, and physical education. It was explained to the committee, okay, after that, this is another subject. It was explained to the committee that in the middle school, there will be a school culture and climate initiative. It is a 3-year process which will encompass the following. Year 1, school culture and climate. Year 2, in addition to those 2 items, school health. And then in year 3, in addition to those, mental health supports. Next, as part of our strategic plan, we will be moving forward with Project Lead the Way. If you recall, this is an organization that develops STEM courses for use by U.S. elementary, middle, and high schools. Over the summer, a teacher will be trained at university to, in turn, teach the Engineering 2 course at the high school. So I would now like to move items 1 through 4 on the agenda and item 3 on the addendum. Any questions?
Can we have a second?
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiacchino?
Yes.
Mrs. Hockey?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Ms. Suey?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes to 2, 3 on the regular, and 3 on the addendum.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes. Okay, policy did not meet.
Policy did not meet, and there are no items to put forward.
There we go. So personnel. Well, our big news in personnel is that we've appointed a new middle school principal, and she's actually here in the room. So we appointed Lisa Garofalo, and she comes to us from Parsippany with 24 years in that district. And we're really excited. Her start date will be July 1st, and her salary will be $128,800. So welcome and good luck.
Thank you.
And it's also our new superintendent's first hire.
Yes, it is.
So she started off at the top, hiring a principal. So that's wonderful. They're both great.
Okay, so the next thing is that we are still in discussions on our school security, and we shall have more news on that in June.
Still on my report.
I'm really sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, I'll just sit here.
That's okay. That's it. Yep. That concludes my personnel report. This is on the right one. Oh, okay, well, I know, but, all right. So I'd like to move items 1 through 10. Can I have a second?
Second.
Any comments? Questions?
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiacchino?
Yes.
Mrs. Hockey?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Ms. Suey?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes to 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Okay. And Mrs. Lees?
Yes. I know. Okay. Craig, facilities.
Facilities and operations met this evening. We did have a full house. All members were in attendance, as well as Gretchen. And our architects represented, all 3 architects came. We actually had only 2 agenda items, but they were 2 very large and exciting agenda items. The first item we discussed was the student access area. Plans are ready. We will be going out to bid on May 25th. The bid opening would be, it's going to be scheduled for the end of June. We may have to have a special meeting in order to award that contract. We're talking about, I'm not sure it's official yet, but June 20th, the night of high school graduation.
The afternoon.
It would, yeah.
Not during graduation.
We'll be at graduation. We'll stop graduation in the middle and then, but the bid opening would be on June 15th, and the plan is to start sometime in the very beginning of July. So we're very excited with that project. Things seem to be going well. A little tighter in terms of we're trying to get the project completed during the summer when there's as little traffic as possible in the Burnsville Center shopping center. So it looks like we should be able to accommodate that. We could have had another month, but we've been moving things as quickly as we can. The other item we discussed, and according to Mrs. Dempsey, the cat is out of the bag. We're redoing the middle school recess area, so that I can publicly say that, correct, Ms. Dempsey? Yeah. And without getting into a lot of details with that, it's going to be the entire area is going to be revamped, and we did speak. A lot of the discussion was on the handicap areas and how to access those areas. So we think we have a pretty good plan with all of that. I'm not going to get into any specifics, but the time frame for that is the bids will go out next Friday, May 18th, and the bid will be awarded on June 12th. That's the plan for that. We're talking about some lights in that area as well, and cameras, or a camera, possibly 2 in that area as well, for safety and that sort of thing. So very excited about both projects. They look terrific. Architects did a wonderful job with it, and we are, I'll speak for myself, I'm very excited. I think everybody else is as well. A lot of excitement in the room. I don't want to overuse that word, but it's good stuff going on. So that is the, I'm sorry. The only other thing I do want to talk about is the Stop It app, or the reporting app. We are still not in a position to make any recommendation yet to the full board. I think the last piece of the puzzle before we do that is a meeting that is going to be held on June 26th with Community in Crisis during the day. There are 2 apps that Community in Crisis has evaluated, or they've evaluated many apps. They narrowed it down to 2 apps based on a lot of different factors, cost and feasibility, and a lot of different things. They put a lot of work into it, and so it looks like our decision on which app to recommend to the full board, if we are going to even go in that direction, is going to be at some point after that. We have an August meeting, so we're not sure about that yet, but that's the timeline for that. So that's the report. I make a motion to approve action items numbers 1, 2, and 3. I believe, right?
Second?
Just one.
Just one?
No, it's 1 through 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Action items 1 through 3.
Okay, so seconded.
Sarah?
Any comments, questions?
Okay. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiacchino?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoppy?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Ms. Sui?
Yes.
Mrs. Tover?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes to 2 and 3. I didn't think 1 was high school late, but I could be wrong. It was middle school, so just 2 and 3.
And Mrs. Lees?
Yes. Okay. The
Well, we haven't met, but I would.
Okay.
Is that community engagement? Yeah, community engagement has not met. We are scheduled to meet right now for May 23rd. That meeting date is up in the air. We're waiting on a couple of things. There have been some questions as to the parameters that community engagement is operating under. We're waiting just to get a list of the parameters so we can look at it. We want to see that and make sure we're going in the right direction. So at this point, the May 23rd meeting is up in the air, so we're not sure about that yet. Other than that, there's no items to report on.
Any comments? Are there any public questions or comments on anything? Oh, we have one.
Hi, Sam, I'm going to be speaking on the road, Gladstone. I was wondering, do you guys have a number of how many Spanish-speaking families there are in the district?
Hi, everybody. So that data, and I did have that data is tougher for us to kind of tease out of Power School because families we don't register families, we register students.
Okay.
But I can say over 250 students say that they have registered that they are at a home where Spanish is spoken. But also, as I mentioned, that data is a little bit cloudy because that could be brothers and sisters, multiple family members from the same. But also, the families may communicate with us in English and Spanish as well. But that's about 13–14%.
Okay. And then what percentage is ELL?
ELL is over the whole district about 5%.
Okay, thank you.
Buenas noches, good evening. My name is Elizabeth Robles, and I live in 50 Belcher Road in Far Hills, New Jersey. I have a high schooler and I have twins in Bedwell Elementary. And I'm just taking 1 minute of your time to give you my appreciation and my sincere thank you for taking the time of reading the letter, addressing the letter in some way, and Mr. Catelli for all your effort and support during this year, and to invite you to participate in our next bilingual monthly meeting. It will be nice to see you there because that way you can have a face-to-face contact with our families and you can hear their concerns, their questions, and their difficulties. They want to be part of the education of their kids. And we know that if we have the family involved, everyone is a success possibility. I appreciate your inclusion culture, and I hope that this next year will be one of new beginnings for everyone.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
When is that next meeting? And when is the meeting?
The next meeting is going to be on May 31st at 6:30. We use this space here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? Are there any supplementary matters?
Can I just say one thing? I don't think we really got to it in the prior conversation, but I just wanted to say as a board member and as a parent of 3 in the middle school, I'm very excited for you to be joining and leading that. And it's a place that's near and dear to the hearts of several of the parent board members up here, and clearly to Gretchen. And we spent a ton of time, and we, lots of input from the community selecting our new superintendent, and we are thrilled about the superintendent we selected. And she, in turn, is thrilled, I know, I've seen it, with your coming in. So I just want to say welcome, and we're really, really excited to have you on board.
I can't wait to start.
I have a supplementary matter. I just want to comment how wonderful the intergenerational prom was. And thank you, Greg, for all your efforts. It really was an amazing evening. We had such a good turnout. The kids, the parents that did all the work, the kids did so much work. They did such a great job. They had such a good time. It was really fun. So that's a wonderful event.
Great.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second?
Second.
Come on. Okay. Thank you, everybody.